to swing this direction toward the successful side, and then you're going to see Gustavus's army doesn't lose a beat as they move in and begin to crush the Catholic army as these scattered dots begin to get rolled up by the rolling thunder and the infantry and the cavalry, just crushing one square after another. And Gustavus Adolphus finally registers a victory, finally a big victory over a Catholic army. Gustavus Adolphus, the savior of the Lutherans. And of course, now the Lutherans will rally to him. He'll fight a battle the next year at Lützen. Again, these are in central Germany, central German states, 1632. In this one, he's going to take on the other great Catholic commander, Wallenstein. Now, I just told you that Wallenstein had been retired. He'd been fired. And he went away. Well, after Tilly was defeated, the emperor calls on Wallenstein again, and Wallenstein responds, comes back to the emperor, rebuilds an army, and takes on Gustavus Adolphus at Lützen. In this battle, Wallenstein's here, and the Swedes are here, and it's going to be just a smash battle. Wallenstein's a great commander. He saw what Gustavus Adolphus had done in the first battle, and so he's much able to take him on. These two armies just collide into each other, and in the battle here, near the town of Lützen, in an open field here, these two armies going at it, and Gustavus Adolphus gets killed on the battlefield. There's a marker on the battlefield right along the road there where Gustavus Adolphus died in the middle of the army. I mean, he led his troops in the front lines, and he died at the Battle of Lützen. Well, you might expect the Swedes to just crumble here, right? They've lost their king, and they don't lose a beat. With the training that they've had, the next man in command will step up and assert himself over the army. Each man will move up one rank, and the army just keeps rolling, and they will win the Battle of Lützen. Now, they do go into a kind of a stasis here. They got to kind of wait after the Battle of Lützen. They can't march on Vienna or anything because they need to wait for a new king. So it does kind of put the Swedes out, but it was kind of interesting that they are able to pull together to win the Battle of Lützen, and then they go into kind of a down period. This next phase is called the international phase. This is our fourth phase. The Swedes have been kind of stopped after winning a couple of battles. And the international phase will finish us off from the Battle of Lützen in 1632 to 1648 to wrap this war up. What's happening here? Well, the Swedish army is still out. It's still an effective fighting force, you know, going from place to place, but not quite as effective as under Gustavus Adolphus. The Spanish begin to get involved much heavily now, sending armies up from their Italian states, sending armies along the Rhine. And then the French get involved. Cardinal Richelieu had been involved pretty much throughout, but now the French armies start getting involved. And when this happens, you're going to have just open warfare all over the German states, all through them, as armies collide with armies, outside states influencing the German events. The Holy Roman Emperor is a non-entity in all this. And what eventually evolves is just mercenaries. You will have just roaming armies just rampaging all over Germany. Forget the religious stuff, just a chance for mercenaries to gather and loot. The Spanish will begin to attack the Netherlands. The Dutch had gained their independence in the 1500s. Well, the Spanish decide, well, let's try to attack the Dutch again. And France will come to the defense of the Dutch. Kind of strange, you know. Catholic Cardinal Richelieu defending the Dutch. He will try to block them. They were coming up, trying to move troops along the Rhine, and Cardinal Richelieu will begin to move toward the Rhine. This is where kind of the start of French policy to gain access to the Rhine. French armies will be moving into the German states to fight the Spanish armies. These are two great Catholic powers. What had started off as a religious war between Lutherans and Catholics now becomes a war of great Catholic nations going at it. And of course, it's in the German states. It's not in France, it's not in Spain, it's in the German states. And then finally we can wrap this up in 1648 with the Peace of Westphalia. Westphalia is a state along the Rhine, a German state along the Rhine, in 1648. And what they come up with after 30 years of warfare, status quo antebellum. Literally, the status quo before the war. In other words, we just fought 30 years for nothing. We go back to 1555, the old Treaty of 1555, cuius regio, eius religio is asserted once again. A couple of small changes that Calvinism can be a choice. But just the main event here is the destruction of these German states. They've spent 30 years in a religious war and then several years under international rampaging armies. It has destroyed the German states. Their population has fallen. We don't really know specifically exactly how much the population suffered, depending on what book you read, somewhere from 25 to 50%. From when they started in 1618, the population has dropped anywhere from 25 to 50%. Entire towns have been obliterated. There were towns on the map in 1618 that in 1648 are no longer on the map. As far as industry goes, there's none. There's no reason to try to make something in Germany because you're going to just have it wiped out by an army. So you have no middle class. You've got nobody trying to make money. You've got people just trying to survive. Trade? No. With rampaging armies, it's not safe to be on the road anywhere. So there is no middle class. There is no trade going on. We estimate, and again, this is kind of a guess by historians, how far back this war put the Germans. We think about 200 years, because this is going to be the time of France and England really stepping forward, and the Germans are going to be not even a consideration. About 200 years for them to recover. It won't be till the 1800s before Germany gets back on track. And again, one of the other impacts here is you still have a Holy Roman Empire, but it's even less of an empire than it was before, an emperor who has very little power. And again, what you'll see now, marking 1648, is the rise of a powerful French state. Cardinal Richelieu is dead by this point, but a powerful Louis XIV of France, and you kind of mark the decline of Spain now. If you're trying to figure out when does Spain start stepping off from being a great power, 1648 kind of marks the first knockdown for the Spanish, the first time they've actually been knocked aback. So 1648 is pretty important. And we can also mark this, well, this will be the last of the religious wars. At this point, if you're a king in Europe or a ruler in Europe, you definitely do not want any religious war coming near you after the example of the 30 Years' War for the Germans.